Yo, what is up guys, it's Pedro here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Jayden Daniels' status for this game, some other rookies, Terry McLaurin, and much more. It's not looking good for Jayden Daniels for this Sunday. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and that notification bell as well so you never miss a video. Let's get right into the video. So this is a report from Keim, or on his podcast. This is not me saying this, but on Keim's midweek report on his podcast, he expressed doubts that Jayden Daniels will play this week. He said he has strong doubts about Five playing in Atlanta, and obviously that is significant. Jayden Daniels is the franchise player, and from what he said in his press conference yesterday, he seems like he's good to go. If it was up to him, he would play. Obviously, it's not fully up to him. The doctors have to clear him, but he feels good enough to play. And he's just he probably thinks it's all silly, like I gotta wear a brace, I gotta wait a couple weeks, I feel like I can play. And he did play through it during the game. Obviously has adrenaline, it's a little bit different, but he felt like he could play then. He probably felt like he could play last week against the Raiders, and for sure probably thinks he can play against the Falcons, but it's looking like probably not. We're going to get into the full injury report later, but he was listed as a limited participant yesterday and then also today. So, that's better than last week where he was a DMP, then limited. This week, limited. We'll see about tomorrow. Yesterday I thought he was going to play, going into this Falcons game. Now it looks like a little bit of a lower chance, at least from what Keim said. Keim also, Keim's a reporter and he has his sources and stuff like that. He also earlier in the week said that the Terry thing wasn't a big deal. He was jogging on the sideline and he'll probably be fine for the game. And look where that's gone. We don't know for sure. There's really no update today besides Terry didn't practice, but it looks like at minimum he's going to be out this week. I saw some news or from Ian Rapport saying it's like a hip flexor injury. They said earlier quad, and then sports hernia, and then now hip flexor. So really not a lot of clarity on that situation when he's going to come back, but I would say at minimum he is out for this week against the Atlanta Falcons. Terry hasn't been super good so far, still obviously a loss, but also AJ Terrell, their best cornerback, is going to be out, so I think that kind of cancels out a little bit. But Jayden, if he plays, he's likely going to have to play with the brace. He's practicing with the brace, I believe. And, who knows? If he misses this week, maybe he doesn't have to wear a brace against the Chargers week 5, because I feel like that's the minimum he'll be out the maximum he would be out is the Falcons game and then the Raiders game and then the Falcons game. I don't know. I still think that is a little bit overkill. I think, he could be good to go. But again, it's also good to be overly cautious than, it's better to be overly cautious than just let him go out there and who knows, what happens with it. So, that's kind of my take on the situation there. Let's go into I'll show you guys a video of him at practice today. Looks fine. He looks like his normal self. He's not sprinting or anything, but that's not what happens at practice anyways. Again, he looks like he's moving fine to me. I'm not an expert. He looks like he's throwing the ball fine too. I mean, that throw looked at least 30 yards or something. I mean, again, it's hard to tell from the clip, and there too the velocity looks good on that. He's probably good to play. It's just a matter of how cautious are they going to be about it, and they're probably going to take an abundance of caution, which I get it, but at the same time, man, you would love to see him out there because every game is important, and the Falcons is a game you should win, and Mariota played really well last week, and I trust him to play well this week too, but still, you want your franchise quarterback out there, and you want to get the best quarterback play and give yourself the best chance to win. I think at this point, Jayden obviously gives us the best chance to win. I don't think his injury is going to hinder himself that much against the Falcons. It's just a matter of, all right, is that injury, is there a possible re-injury risk, or if he plays on it, is it going to maybe linger a little bit longer, whereas if he just rests, maybe it's just fully better once you get to that once you get to that Chargers game. So there's a lot of different things that the Commanders have to consider there, but the Commanders likely going to be, without a lot of their top players going into this game. The injury bug has not been kind to them. Terry's going to be out. Jayden looking like he's going to be out. And then you have, Jacory or Bill Krosky Merritt might be out. Trey Amos looks like he's good to go. And then we have a bunch of injuries already. Will Harris, Eckler, Jonathan Jones, Dietrich Wise. There's just a lot of guys already injured. So we're going to go into the full injury report, but real quick, a word from today's sponsor. And a huge shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you guys go ahead and check them out. There's a bunch of different things you guys can do on Sleeper. You can get the latest NFL news, sports news on there. Also, you can play in your fantasy leagues on there with your friends, which I have a dynasty league on Sleeper. And then also, you can win real money by making picks. So this week, the Commanders play the Atlanta Falcons. I will have my picks out for that, but obviously, we don't know if Jayden Daniels is playing, if Terry McLaurin is playing, so that obviously will change up some of the picks. But make sure you guys use promo code Pedro on Sleeper. Get a 100% match up to $100. If you put in 10, you'll get 20, and use that link in the description. Terms and conditions apply. Alrighty, so let's get into this injury report. So not good news, obviously, overall, besides like one thing, which is Trey Amos going from a limited to a full participant. Colson Yankov was on the injury list, but he was full on Wednesday, and he's good to go Thursday. And then Jayden Daniels, limited. We talked about that. Terry, DMP. And then Jacory or Bill Krosky Merritt, DMP with a knee injury. Apparently he was banged up, feeling pretty sore after the game. And actually, we saw the injury yesterday on the report, and it was a little bit concerning. But then after, a lot of the reporters were saying, oh, it's no biggie, he's just a little bit sore. And I was almost going to make a video earlier today, and I'm happy I didn't, saying, oh, like the Commanders got good news about Bill. But he was a DMP today. So maybe what they're saying is true and stuff about him being sore, but clearly it's still, impacting him a little bit because he's not practicing. He was in pads doing a little bit of side work, but I would still think he has a chance to play on Sunday, but, definitely less than I did maybe when the reports were coming out yesterday, a little bit after the injury first got out there. Percy Butler, DMP, doesn't really matter too much, but, they did say he was practicing on the side. Noah Brown, DMP, and John Bates, DMP. So receiver room's thin. Noah Brown, I honestly don't really care. Obviously, hopefully in terms of his injury, like hopefully he's recovering and everything. But I don't really care when he comes back because, at this point it's just we've seen this story before. He'll come back and then just gets hurt again. And, you can't really count on him. So it's really Debo's season right now. Jalen Lane, hopefully Luke McCaffrey's going to have to step up, and Chris Moore. Like, it's crazy, but Chris Moore might be the Commanders' number 2 receiver at the moment, with Terry out and with Noah Brown out for who knows long. So, yeah, the Commanders' receiver room is not really deep right now. And, we're going to have some guys step up. Jalen Lane stepped up as a returner, and he won Pepsi Rookie of the Week, and shout out to the fans. I mean, not saying he didn't deserve it, but low-key he didn't really deserve it compared to some of the other guys, like Torrey Horton, the Seahawks guy, had like a return touchdown. I think he also had a receiving touchdown, or definitely had a bunch, some receiving yards as well. So, but hey, the fans, that's their fans' problem. Our fans showed out, and Jalen Lane still had a good week, obviously. But we need to see more from him on offense. Let's get a game. I don't need, 70 yards and a touchdown. That would be great. And, it would be nice, yes. But let's get like 35, 40 yards, a couple big catches. That's all I'm asking for. And, that is a big ask, considering he has like, 2 or 3 catches this year. And, hasn't really had anything over like 5 or 10 yards from what I remember, and had the drop in the end zone. It wasn't an easy catch, but it was a really good throw by Marcus Mariota, and he couldn't come down with it. So he's going to have to step up. Luke's going to have to step up. And I think Luke can step up, and actually will step up for the Commanders. But we've seen this story before with Luke McCaffrey, so, thinking he's going to step up, and he hasn't. So can't get the, hopes up too high, but we're going to need a good week from him. And John Bates, probably not playing this week, which is unfortunate. Hopefully next week he's good to go. So Falcons, we'll breeze through this one because, this is the Commanders channel. We don't know as much about, I don't know as much about the Falcons as I do the Commanders, but we'll go over, the basic stuff. Nate Carter, a running back, he's not a starter, not the backup, so not a big deal there, but he's probably out. And then you have Kadero Hodge, who had that touchdown. Was it against the Vikings or the Eagles last year? It was a huge touchdown. I think it was against the Eagles on Monday night or something like that. But, he was out. A.J. Terrell, one of their best defensive players, is out. And then Josh Woods is fine. Jamal Agnew, returner, and James Pierce, their first-round pick, were limited. So that's, their situation there. And, yeah, so that is it for today's video. Just want to talk about the Commanders' injury situation going into this game against the Atlanta Falcons. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.